right? Because these are complicated issues. And it's a crazy time and a crazy company, and maybe I'm a bit crazy too, in terms of the way that I approach this, which is just being very definitive. But again, it's an association thing, right? Like, how do I shake that off? Well, you be successful, then you become a visionary rather than someone who's hyperbolic, right? How do you affect an election? What are elections? What is representative democracy? How does democracy act in the area of zero cost creation and massive optimization? So every single speech will be run through GPT-4. Cadence, all this, everything. You get micro-targeting, you get all these things. Does it happen next year? Probably not. Next year you see some very basic stuff. Well, what does 2028 look like? I am not sure, genuinely. And so we do need authentication standards. We do need to have some sort of maybe antivirus AI that watches out for kind of fake stuff. But even true stuff can cause huge impact. Like the Silicon Valley bank collapse was a true story. It wasn't something fake. They didn't have reserves. And most of our system is actually based on trust. So these are some things that concern me. I don't have the answers. But again, that's why you have to kind of raise the alarm. Like, let's try and figure this out before it comes, because maybe it doesn't happen next election. It sure as heck will in the congressional and then beyond. And again, what is the nature of democracy when you can't tell what's true or not? People worried about this with the previous kind of era. This is something just beyond that, I think, because it's convincing.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is going to be a very meaningful problem. I had Yoshua Bengio on the show, and he had also signed the letter saying we should pause for 6 months. Yeah. And when I asked him why, because considered by many to be the godfather of AI, and I was like, bro, you've been at this for so long, like why all of a sudden? And he said we were all so taken completely by surprise with how quickly AI passed the Turing test. Now, for people that don't know what the Turing test is, it's where you're having a conversation with an AI and you can't tell that they're not a real person. And he said, so yeah, we did not expect it to pass the Turing test as quickly as it did, and that changes everything, and it's just moving so much faster. And that's really the thing I want people to understand, is that when a guy that spent the last 30 years building AI says, hey, all of a sudden this is moving a lot faster than we thought it would, he's somebody that's very familiar with exponential curves. Yeah. And even trying to plot out the exponential curves, they didn't think that it was going to happen this fast. And that, the rate, not only is the rate of change extremely fast, but there's the law of accelerating returns. So the rate of change is already fast and it's getting faster. And that's the thing that I'm really worried about, is this going to be something that just blindsides us from that perspective? It has a level of capability that we didn't expect this quick.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of S-curves all at once. So there's three of them: Yann LeCun, Jeffrey Hinton, and Yoshua Bengio. And Jeffrey Hinton quit Google to say this is a massive risk. And you have Yann LeCun's like, this is a massive opportunity in terms of it'll transform the world. He loves the research and things. So they've got 1 versus 2. But the reality is every expert in this area is basically saying none of us can predict what's going to happen. If you ask me about the capabilities of this technology in 1 year, I mean, got a rough idea. 2 years, I have no idea. All bets are off. Like, as a practical example, when can we have generated Hollywood quality movies? It's not even a question of if now, it's a question of when.
Correct.
If it happened a year from now, I'd be like, okay, sure. I would not even be surprised anymore. I think it'll be a few years from now. And even though we have one of the best media teams in the world that are building video models, I have no idea. Because there's 2 parts to this. One is the models themselves, but the second part is how we use the models and combine them. Like, there is an amazing company called Wonder Dynamics. I don't know if you've come across that.
I've used them.
It's awesome.
Unbelievable.
And it's a bunch of different models. So Wonder Dynamics got me click on it and then say I want it to be an alien, and it does this, and the alien's waving its arms, and it takes like 5 minutes. It would have taken days, weeks before. Weeks before to create
Rigging a character is one of the most difficult things you're going to do in 3D. It's insane.
Minutes. And then you think, well, what is a movie, right? And you start breaking down, you're like, oh dear. Because it's not necessarily just one model, it's a model combined with other models with the right flow. Because you have one talented youngster combined with other talented youngsters in the right flow, suddenly gets these things done, and that's what makes it even harder. Because what we're talking about is models and AI. What we should really be talking about is systems. As the models come together and build better systems, the capabilities go crazy, and then that is another S-curve exponential.
Give me what you mean by systems.
So right now, again, a lot of the interactions we have with this AI, the text-to-image, the avatar creation, the GPT-4 are one-to-one. What happens when we start chaining them together to check each other's outputs? You have one that just learns everything about Tom. You know, you have your own AI models that you train on all of the stuff that you've ever done, or all the stuff that you see on your computer screen. That's a system of lots of AIs. That's an organization of AIs. That's an ensemble of AIs. Like, again, from the leaks, GPT-4 is a mixture of experts model, which means they have a whole bunch of different models, I think 8 or something, or 12, that are experts in different areas. And then it routes the query to whatever the best
It's basically
model is.
specialization versus a generalist.
So we created an know-it-all, and now we're creating specialists. But we can get generalists to even check each other's answers to get better answers. Why use one when you have a dozen? So something like One Dynamics uses a bunch of different models to rig a character and figure out all of the movements of the character, and then another model to do a layer over, another model to do the skinning and other things like that, because they built great software.
Yeah, this is really crazy how fast this stuff moves. Okay, so I want to talk about Web3. Web3 to me, when I think about what drew me to it in the beginning, it was entirely the technology. And when I look at the blockchain, so I obviously come at everything from the lens of entertainment. So I'm thinking about digital worlds, games, all that. And the problem is, once it's digital, then it's all sort of meaningless. And so you end up having to trap people inside of an ecosystem in order for things to retain their value, because you can lock things in and make sure that things only react the way that you want, but you have to confine them. And when I had first, this is probably 7 or 8 years ago now, I was introduced to this thing that the guy at the time called V atoms. And I was like, oh, wow, that's going to change everything, because what it does is it brings effectively the laws of physics into the digital realm. It means that I can